Let's talk about legacy, that shimmering ethereal substance that separates the titans of history from, well, from us. Some people spend their lives crafting inventions, conquering nations, or writing profound works of literature that shape humanity's future. Point is, history remembers people for a lot of things, some good, some bad, and sometimes it remembers them for how spectacularly they clocked out of existence. Meet Aeschylus, the first victim on our historical chopping block. Imagine 5th century ancient Greece, the land of togas, philosophy, and dudes wrestling naked in olive oil, and our boy Aeschylus? Real big name back in the day. Father of tragedy, they called him. Basically invented crying on stage. Dude created a literal genre in theater, wrote a buttload of plays, and won more awards than Meryl Streep. But despite dedicating his whole life to theater, he's mostly remembered for how he sacrificed himself to help an eagle. Well, legend says Aeschylus got spooked by a prophecy warning him, "Dude, something's gonna fall on your head and kill you." So he came up with a brilliant defense strategy: hang out in the open. Because apparently, the universe can't drop stuff on you if you don't have a ceiling over your head. Genius. Enter an eagle with a tortoise in its claws. You see, eagles love gravity more than Newton and use it to put their prey out of commission. Turtles being no exception. They break open turtle shells by dropping them on rocks. And guess whose shiny bald dome looked suspiciously like a convenient boulder from 300 feet up? Yep, our unsuspecting playwright. The result? One splattered tortoise, one splattered skull, and presumably one happy eagle. Bro was outside precisely to avoid getting domed by falling debris. Damn you, prophecy. Next up, we have Adolf Fredrik, an 18th century Swedish king whose career highlight was basically just existing. See, Sweden's parliament held most of the power, so while Adolf Fredrik wore the crown, he wasn't exactly rewriting the laws of the land. And when you have a group of talented people running the country and Netflix and chill still wasn't a thing, what else is a king supposed to do? The answer is hit the kitchen. And oh boy, did he know how to eat. Venison, truffles, exotic bird meats, spices from the Orient. If it was edible and expensive, King Adolf shoveled it down his royal throat. And on Fettisdagen, aka Fat Tuesday in 1771, the king decided to go all in. He treated himself to a feast that puts modern competitive eaters to shame. Lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, smoked herring, champagne, you name it, he inhaled it. And the real kicker was semla pastries, a Swedish dessert, basically a cream bun drenched in almond paste and whipped cream, served swimming in hot milk. And King Adolf? He didn't stop at 1, or 2, or even 5. This absolute unit of a monarch housed 14 of these cream-soaked monstrosities. 14. Even an industrial vacuum cleaner would get heartburn from that. And then, King Adolf Fredrik collapsed and died. Polite historical sources call his official death as digestive problem. I'm no medical expert, but that's an understatement. Dude died while trying to fit an entire bakery inside himself in one sitting. He's now remembered as the king who ate himself to death. And Wikipedia calls his reign unremarkable. Talking about unremarkable, the next guy on our list was anything but unremarkable. Tycho Brahe. Born in the Renaissance era when everything was about wigs or ruffs with a healthy fear of witches. And in this world of superstition and questionable science, Tycho Brahe was a beacon of observation. He was a Danish astronomer so good at stargazing, he practically wrote the pre-telescopic user manual on planetary motion, charted the stars with insane precision for the time, discovered new stars. He hung out with royals, built elaborate observatories, and even had a fake metal nose after losing the real one in a sword fight. Honestly, this video isn't even enough to cover his life properly. Dude was stacked with achievements. I'm definitely making another video about him, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Anyway, back to the point. By all accounts, he was top-tier brain material. But for all his brain power pointed at the heavens, Tycho apparently had 0 brain cells at work when it came to basic bodily functions. The story goes like this. One night, Tycho attended a fancy banquet with the Holy Roman Emperor. Now, in the 16th century, apparently, it was considered super rude to leave the table mid-meal before the host did. So Tycho, being the polite little nerd he was, decided to hold it in. And he held it. And held it. Until his bladder decided to go supernova. Another version of the story claims his bladder didn't go kaboom, but instead got severely infected. But we're not listening to that version. For 11 days, he suffered from uremia, essentially dying a slow and agonizing death. So, kids, next time nature calls, don't put it on hold. It's not worth it. And you are not famous, no one will make a video on you. But in old times, being famous meant you could have an anime-style nickname, like Arthur Wellesley, the Iron Duke, or General George Allen Vasey, aka Bloody Vasey. Or take our old Viking mate Sigurd Eysteinsson. They called him Sigurd the Mighty, Earl of Orkney. He wasn't some table vase king like Adolf. Sigurd was a warrior, a conqueror, a dude who made his name by leading raids across northern Scotland. He carved out a Viking kingdom for himself in the Orkney and Shetland Islands. Sigurd was out there conquering Scotland, raiding coastlines, generally living the Viking dream, until one day he gets into a beef with some Pictish chieftain, Mael Bright, aka Bucktooth. You know Sigurd's gonna win just based on that name alone. They agree to a 40-man battle, all fair and all honorable. Except Vikings weren't exactly known for their strict adherence to the rules. Long story short, Sigurd rocks up with 80 warriors, Bucktooth and his crew get slaughtered, one-sided victory for Sigurd. And what's a Viking victory without a little post-battle trophy action? Sigurd detaches Mael Bright's head from his body and ties that severed Bucktooth noggin to his saddle. Big mistake. Turns out, even in death, Bucktooth gets his revenge. As Sigurd's riding home, all puffed up with pride, one of those buck teeth on the severed head starts scratching Sigurd's leg. Tiny little wound. No big deal, right? Wrong. Getting an infection in those days was as easy as catching an STD today. Infection sets in, and just like that, Viking the Mighty, conqueror of lands, is brought down by a goddamn tooth scratch from a decapitated dude. Now last, and certainly not any less dumb, we got Clement Vallandigham. Sounds like a rejected Harry Potter spell, but Clem was a real dude. An American lawyer, politician, and professional pain in Abraham Lincoln's ass during the Civil War. This guy was a copperhead, which for you History Challenge folks was basically a super anti-war Democrat back in the day. Vallandigham gave speeches against the war, got arrested, deported to the Confederacy, and even snuck back into the US with a fake mustache. But his real claim to fame came in 1871 while he was defending a guy named Thomas McGeehan who was charged with murdering someone in a bar fight. Vallandigham's bold defense? That the victim had accidentally shot himself while trying to stand up and reach for his own gun, so McGeehan wasn't at fault. Now Clem knew this story sounded like a stretch and he had to sell it. So he's in his hotel room having breakfast with his legal team and he's like, "Gentlemen, allow me to demonstrate." Grabs a revolver thinking it's unloaded. Big red flag. Never assume a gun is unloaded, especially when you're about to point it at yourself. But Clem? He had a point to prove. Puts the gun in his pocket, reenacts the whole accidental self-shooting scenario. Bang! Wrong freaking gun. Loaded. Shoots himself right in the gut. Fatally. And dies like 12 hours later. Ironically, his demonstration convinced the court that the victim really could have shot himself, so McGeehan was acquitted. So the moral of the story is, guns are dangerous, and pointing them at yourself is stupid. Well, that's enough for today. Throw a turtle or semla pastries at it, I don't care, just make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you like the video, then don't forget to share and leave a like. I'm aiming for at least 10 likes.